Welcome to the first Grovation Agri IT Benchmark event. This is the first of many, and this is the launch where we will present the results of what the Agri IT industry has to say to you. We have a lineup of speakers, we have a lineup of panel discussions, and we are here to tell you about what the outcomes of that benchmark has been. My name is Phumza Gyani, and I look forward to hosting you for the day. And now to start the day, we have a phenomenal speaker all the way from the Eastern Cape. His name is Jaco Mas, and he is from the entity, a company called ShiftX, which specializes in digital transformation. He will be giving us a talk and a presentation around what are the best approaches for entities in the agriculture sector in leading the digital transformation. Jaco, welcome on board, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, I'm Jaco Mas, and I'm the General Manager of Shift, the Digital Acceleration, which is part of the BKB Group. We are a newly formed company that specializes in the digital acceleration of the agricultural industry. Today I'm going to do a presentation to you about leading digital transformation in the agricultural industry, and would like to share some of our thoughts and the way that we think and what we've done as a company thus far. Global forces affecting future of food is interesting in terms of what is happening in the world. I think the world population is going to grow from 7.3 billion people to 9.3 over the next 30 years. That's an increase of about 30% in world population. Now, the reality of agriculture in the world is that we are not producing enough food, of course, for these guys. And furthermore, about 30% of this food is going to waste. In developed countries, the food are going to waste based on the fact that there's just such an abundance of food, so there's too much for them to consume. And in the underdeveloped countries, the infrastructure just doesn't allow for to get to the food to the hungry people. Furthermore, agriculture is under pressure for the fact that it is using one of the most scarce resources in the world, and it's becoming more scarcer, and that's water. And so we are getting under pressure and getting the blame game basically on us. As we are producing more food, we are also contributing to global warming. And the world admission is specifically livestock in that. On the other hand, only 1% of the world population is currently commercial farmers. So we will have to find a way in which we can increase production, sustainable, with our current farming population to grow in the need of the world population as we have a requirement for more food. Now, if we look at the slide of BKB as a company, you can see we are diversified into various sectors. It is an agricultural company that has the largest footprint in South Africa, spanning all across the country, specifically focusing on the wool industry, livestock, the livestock auctioneering, which comes into play very much in this presentation. Retail stores in the region, about 52 retail stores, but then we also go in finance, and we've diversified into sugar, raisins, and all Lucerne grain handling. So it's quite a diverse company. Shift specifically as a company is quite new. We are young, we are a small team. We are about 8 people in the team. And as you can see, we are only starting up and then starting to utilize these digital tools to transform the way that we are doing business. Now, there's a difference between digitization versus digitalization and digital transformation in any business. Digitization is the process of converting information from a physical format into a digital one. Now, a lot of our businesses has been in this process. We are transforming from a paper-based company into a digital one. We are utilizing more advanced systems, cloud-based computing, but that is not, in the true sense, digital transformation. We need the process then is leveraged to improve the business processes. That is called digitalization. What we can see, and what I would like to do for this presentation, is try to explain to you how we have transformed and how we are digitally transforming the industry through the utilization of digitalization and digitalization for our business. This is a slide of how BKB as a business looked in 2013. Now, what I would like to do is just concentrate on the focus of how we've moved from digitalization and digitalization of the company. In 2013, we were very much just a single channel of communicating to our customers, and that is through print media. So we utilize print media to put an ad in a paper or in a magazine that needed to inform our customers of the products and services that we sold. That ad then ran into our system, which then was on the systems of record side, very much a bespoke system with various applications and Excel spreadsheets of keeping information together. In 2020, this is how the picture looked. We have now employed various applications, business applications, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, MailChimp, and started utilizing all of these platforms that has now come to par for any business, and the reality of how we then conduct our business to convey messages. Now, the reality of these platforms are that each of them convey a specific type of message because you are talking to a specific type of community. So we needed to start segmenting our communities and segmenting the message that we want to set out, and did that very much through digital media and to inform our customers. So it's not that print media has been replaced, but there's a lot of more that came to the digital ecosystem that became relevant for our customers in how we then convey the message of what we actually do. On the system of record side, what we did in the time, we also put a central ERP in place to collect all of this information. So as with the transactions happened, this information then was flowing through to a central database in a cloud-based environment. And from there, that allowed us then to move into business intelligence. The business intelligence that we found from this very much concentrated data set allowed us to start doing segmentation on our customers. The relevance with regards to segmentation of the customers is that you now can start applying various applications to talk to those customers. So it's not a shotgun approach anymore. You are now applying almost like the horses for courses type of effect, making sure that we classified our customers into platinum, gold, silver, and bronze customers. And we also found that only like 15% of our customers actually gives 90% of our value, which you can clearly see then determines a specific type of set. However, the bronze customers, which makes up more than 80% of our customer base, also wants to feel special because the economy that we are now in requires us to also identify the individualization of each customer, even if they are contributing on a very small scale to our business. We started with looking at digital auctions for our business, and that was about in 3 years back. We were scanning the landscape to find a application that was very suited to our environment, something that was mimicking what we were doing on the physical world in the digital world. In the foot and mouth disease then accelerated this whole effort, and we found a partner in the US, and we had our first auction on the 15th of February of this year, which was just at the end of the foot and mouth disease lockdown that we had on livestock side. We learned a lot of lessons through that stud auction, and then on the 6th of April, well into the level 5 lockdown that we experienced with COVID, we launched a production auction that was happening now on each Monday. So we digitalized this whole marketplace where the willing buyer and seller then comes together, and that allows them to find information on what is called a more data-infused lot. It's interesting what has been happening over the past since the lockdown happened in March. We had more than 70 stud auctions that happened. And production auction on a Monday has also now become part of the culture, that at each Monday at 11 o'clock, we are seeing, we've created this marketplace where specifically store lambs are sold. And that has raised more than 40,000 animals that were sold, raising more than 60 million in that region. But the thing is that the market now finds a place where they are finding more information than what they traditionally find at just an open cry auction. That allows them to buy a specific lot that is relevant to the information that or the profitability of the specific feedlot. Another thing that we implemented was a blockchain solution. This came to power in 2017 when I looked at the TED Talk, where the presenter said that blockchain is going to enhance trust. BKB's essence is all about trust. It says in its credo that it is the trusted home of agriculture. And the reality for us as a business is that there is technology out there that is going to have an influence on how that trusted relationship between us and our customer is conducted. We surely need to have a look at that and see how we can incorporate that in our day-to-day activities. So what we've built is a provenance and traceability ledger that is which is backed by blockchain technology that now has been implemented in the wool industry. So each bale of wool that runs through our pack house has the total story of how we are handling that wool bale on it. That allows us now to, when the Chinese come and they say that they would like to know that each bale has been sanitized, to easily just add that to each bale of wool, to the story of that bale of wool and how we are handling that in our ecosystem. I think what I've learned is that through digital transformation and these digital tools, if there's one thing that I can say is that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at changes. It doesn't require a lot of effort. It doesn't require a lot of capital to truly become a digital transformed role player. We've done this by just simply starting off with doing videos on Facebook and allowing our customers to start engaging into that environment. Now, I think that these digital tools does allow us to start unlocking the potential of the emerging farmer, not specifically in South Africa, but in Africa as a whole. And, if we need to supply in 30%, we need to supply more food to people because there are going to be 30% more people in the world. I think Africa has got an unbelievable opportunity to utilize these digital tools to unlock opportunities. And how I would like to explain this is through what a BKB has done over the past 15 years in the wool market. What we've done is we developed 35,000 emerging farmers within these 1,100 shearing sheds. We are paying out in the region of 2 million rand per year, or also transformed in $11.5 million per year that is paid out to these individual farmers. The wool system is so interesting because it allows for a small farmer. Our smallest farmer delivers only 700 grams of wool. But if the quality is right and is according to a certain standard, he takes part in the same market, he gets the same price than a big commercial farmer that has delivered 40,000 tons of wool. I think the more important thing is the educational part. We've done a lot with regards to educational, teaching these guys how to work the system. And then they also own 10% of BKB. Now, what I've explained to you is very much an analog system that has been developed over the past 15 years. But as we can start utilizing these future developing tools and the tools that the fourth industrial revolution brings, it allows us now to create data-driven artificial intelligence around each farmer and utilize the blockchain to, once his commodity has been delivered to the value chain, and it's been taken in by somebody like BKB, the blockchain then can be notified that the commodity has been received by BKB. You can apply artificial intelligence to the profile of that farmer and then disperse funds or an advance on his product. That does not have to flow through any system, then through a cryptocurrency type of token model. It also addresses some of the big challenges that we have in Africa because the farmers don't own the land and the traditional financing model requires land to be utilized as a security. We can now, through IoT devices, the Internet of Things devices, allocate a commodity, a sheep or a bale of wool, to an individual farmer without the land being used as a security. Now, I think there's a lot of opportunities if we look at what has been happening in the rest of Africa with traceability of animals. The stat says that about 60% of all commercial animals, livestock animals, sheep and cattle, is in the hands of commercial farmers, and that our communal farmers own about 40% of them. However, the communal farmers only take part in 2%. There are some critics that says 10 to 15% of the economy when they sell these animals to funerals. But the fact is still that the commercial farmers do take a really low active role with the sale of animals in these markets. One survey that we did in an area called Ngobu was that the farmers in that area, only 5% has ever in their life attended an open cry auction, which is just shocking with regards to these emerging farmers. I think if we can then implement a livestock identification system and digitalize a physical animal by creating a digital twin for it, we can unlock the opportunity for that animal then to start gathering information on the story of how that product or that animal has been handled. We can utilize tools like our RFID scales to identify which animals has been sick or is not picking up weight as it is, and will allow us then to inform the farmer and help him to improve the quality of its herd. That will then start unlocking the opportunity for them to start taking part into something like the digital auctions without moving them. And you don't have to have a big herd. You can group these animals based on the class and how they actually then is processed through the system through something like just simply putting an RFID tag in an animal's ear. So the journey of the data and the opportunities that you can see in the slide is that, if you look at the fourth industrial revolution, and the fourth industrial revolution does bring a certain set of technologies in the value chain of how this animal moves down the stream, IoT devices can be situated on the farm as well as the transport. We've got biotechnologies on the digital auctions, and with that, it's all about how the quality of the animals, how the animals are performing with regards to genetics. We've got data analytics on the provenance and traceability that we can apply. Big data that becomes relevant to feedlots and abattoirs. And at the end of the chain, there's also blockchain that can talk to the consumers and retailers. And I would like to explain this is to look at the alternative value of the data. Right at the bottom, we can see that the data can help us with environmental, sustainable production of animals. Livestock is getting tremendous pressure from people that say that it's because of livestock that we are having this greenhouse emissions and that the earth is getting warmer. However, I do believe that if we can access more of the market, we don't necessarily have to cut down more of the rainforest to create vegetation. We just need to take our emerging farmers and make them part of the problem. And they can solve a production of meat issue for us. If we look at RFID scales can help a lot with animal prediction on health. So any of us, if we don't feel well or if we are sick, we lose weight or we don't pick up weight, that is something that can be traced through RFID scales. Transport, with the use of digital auctions, the stats says that any animal that gets into the production system and that is slaughtered for our consumption, at least get up or down from a truck 7 times in its lifetime. Now, if we can take this information from the farm, we can link the market straight to the farmer, and therefore should also be reducing carbon footprint of these trucks not driving around with these animals. Marketplace algorithms, by collecting a lot of information on the database on how we transact with these animals, should allow us then to create some sort of genetic profile of each farm. And as new animals with a specific genetic profile enters the value chain, we will be able to identify what problems can be solved or what genetic profiles can solve certain problems for you on the farm. And we can then alert you to say, buy these animals because they've got a specific genetic profile that is solving problems for you on the farm. Food safety issues is something that is big in the world. We have seen such a lot of pressure on our supply chain, and the calculations say that's in the region of $6 billion per year that it is costing the value chain because there is food safety issues. So we will have to create the ability to have a full traceability on the system of how our food is processed. Food supply chain intelligence, I think there's a lot of systems that we need to utilize to say the more effective. I've spoken previously about 33% of all food that goes to waste based on the logistics side, and we need to have better understanding of that. And then something that is right there at the bottom is consumer value-based consumption. The interesting thing about this is that they say that the algorithms of the future is going to be very much based on your preferences, your value set, and how the algorithm will then predict to say that if your specific value set say that you will only want to buy sustainably sourced meat, it will predict to you to which shops to go to find meat that has been sustainably produced. Or if your value says that you will only like to support a wool jacket or a wool shirt that has been produced by a responsible wool standard farmer, it will predict to you where to find those products. So that is something that is really coming, and that we need to have, as agricultural industry, have to know about and make ourselves prepare for that. Consumer wellness programs, you can go to the internet and Google consumer wellness programs. Everybody's concerned about the food that they eat, and we are not telling the stories well enough on what the food is. And then right at the top, when you look at the blockchain will allow the consumer crowdfunding models to link the consumer straight to the farmer. And if you go to a company like Crowdfund in the US, they've raised $1.3 billion just on linking the farmer straight to the consumer through something like crowdfunding models. So what I'm talking about is a model where the farmer will be financed straight from the consumer with the animals that is roaming on his farm. There's a big drive also in the world for virtual local markets. People want to buy local, they want to support their local farmers. And I think even in the blockchain, we will have the ability to create this local sense of that I'm actually supporting my local community. Lastly, the blockchain does bring us a trusted relationship between the farmer to customer relationship that links up that relationship that he previously did not have. Now, lastly, I would like to share, and I would like to end off my presentation with some sort of leadership experiences that I've had over the past few years that I've built up. Certain principles that I specifically lead by and that I think about a lot that has changed my environment and how I perceive this environment that I'm currently working in. Leaders of today are really struggling. We are struggling with the fact of we are having all of these new technologies thrown at us, and we are concerned. And then on the other hand, you are having companies like Amazon, Apple, Google, Uber, Airbnb get thrown in your face and say, look at how they has transformed the market. Look at how they have digitalized the environment. Look at how Kodak, for instance, just disappeared. And I think leaderships are struggling with that. They are living in fear in what is happening. And I think even if you look at what they are saying in the statements that I'm having there, even our employees are really concerned. Our employees, the young millennials that's coming to the workplace, are concerned. They're concerned about the leadership that needs to lead them and how that leadership is not facing up to their challenges, and then they leave the companies. We are also very much, I think COVID has bring a certain set of questions on how do we work going forward. We've got all of these technologies. How do we prove productivity? And I think all of these things becomes a reality that clearly there's something wrong with leadership in the world. And it's not necessarily that I'm pinpointing and say there's something wrong, but they are struggling. They are just not necessarily known to look at this. So, what I've seen is that Tony Saldana says in his book, Why Digital Transformation Fails, he says that CEOs originally created the Chief Digital Officer role because they felt that their CIO did not have enough business knowledge to drive digital transformation. And their business unit leaders didn't have enough technical skills to know what was possible. However, reality has shown that adding this extra layer brings its own problems. Now, I think all of you here on this presentation today are leaders in your technology environment, specifically in the agriculture environment. We are faced, and the question is, where does digital transformation come from? Does it come from your IT team? Does it come from your marketing team? Who takes ownership for this transformation? I was on a presentation the other day that the guy said that digital transformation is ruled or is managed by the guy with the baseball bat. Maybe that's true. What is your responsibility? But the thing is that businesses are trying various things. They are trying stuff like the chief digital officer, and it's failing because that poor guy is stepping on people's toes because they need to transform that. But where does the value lie? And who needs to manage that? Now, in the book Zone to Win, Jeffrey Moore talks about, he makes the statement, he says, indeed, until you are clearly past the tipping point, virtually every force inside and outside your organization or company will be working against you. Nonetheless, this is the course you have chosen, and you must not abandon it. So if there is a question or a statement that I would like to make, please don't do this to your company. The guys need to change. We cannot go on like this. We need to choose the value that we need to create and unlock that opportunities in the business. And it is hard. It is really, really hard because there is no blueprint for this. There is no way in which you can say, this is the way that we've done this. We need to iron this out and find this. And I think support will be more relevant in the bigger thing than trying to oppose the edition. Some of the ideas that I would like to share is what worked for me in terms of teamwork is very much the book that I can suggest is the 5 dysfunctions of a team, where he says that at the bottom of it is the absence of trust. And how the pyramid works is that the dysfunction is that there is a lack of trust. Now, in the lack of trust is also vulnerability. And as a leader, and you as a leader today on this call, needs to look at that and say, I need to be vulnerable as a leader. When I'm vulnerable, I create trust. What happens next is that when there is trust, I don't fear to have conflict. I don't have a fear in me not to take up a challenge and say, listen, I do not agree. But what happens then is that if we are in a boardroom and we are talking about, this doesn't work, and because I trust you, I can fight with you. Once we fought the issue out, you need then to commit. You need to walk out of that meeting room and say, I commit to this. I commit to the solution. Because what then happens next in the team is you take accountability. Because if you see anybody in that team, if you see somebody that is not doing what he's supposed to do, you can bring him in and say, although I did disagree with somebody in that meeting, I have taken commitment and now I'm accountable for it. And that eventually leads to results. So based on the fact that there is no blueprint, there is certain things that we can put in place. We can put vulnerability for us as a leader. We can put trust in the team. Once we've got trust, we need to allow for conflict to happen. If we're allowing for conflict, we then find commitment. We walk out of that meeting room and we are saying, I'm committing to what we've decided on. And then we will see that the team start taking accountability within the team that eventually will lead to results. The second thing there is with regards to the clients. Now, I talk a lot about this. I talk to my team and I share with us ideas and this is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. And I want to focus on principle number 5 because I think it is something that I really preach in my team is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So what that says to me is that if a customer phones and he's unhappy, don't just jump on your back legs and start explaining yourself and try to defend the whole issue. Just understand what the customer issue is. Understand what his requirements is. Understand him as a person. Understand where his frustration comes from. Before you start going on and say, this is the reason why this is happening or this is what. Because what then happens, if you first allow him to talk, voice his opinion, then he will allow you to say, okay, can I give you my perspective on what the problem is and how we can. Because as you can see, then we start moving into a win-win an environment where synergy starts working. And that's really important for me to start saying, first seek to understand, then to be understood. One of the things when I pitch with regards to my employees, and specifically working very much in a digital world with millenniumers, is something that and this is a bit more personal, it was my description which I did when I did my MBA. My thesis was managing in the age of wisdom. So I've always had this love for people and trying to understand how people work. Now, I've come up with this the wisdom worker, which is part of the 8 Habits of Stephen Covey, where he references the wisdom worker. And I believe that any wisdom worker, as you would say it, have 5 intelligences. As an individual, me, myself, and you all have these 5 intelligences that you need to balance out in your life. Number 1 is, of course, the normal IQ, the intellectual coefficient, the way that I think. And that, for me, is the world that we are working in. Need to be a world where we are stimulated, which creates for us the environment where we can learn and grow as individuals. The next one is the emotional intelligence. Now I'm just talking about the more obvious ones. Emotional intelligence, and one that I really love as a definition, is my ability to manage your emotions. If I can, getting back to first seek to understand before to be understood, if I have the ability to manage your emotions, that means that I've got a high level of emotional intelligence. Now we start moving into the 3 that's not so much well known. The third one for me is the spiritual intelligence. You need to believe in something. There need to be something that's on higher power that helps you make sense of what is happening in your life. It's difficult to take out the spiritual side and say, this is the reason why stuff has happened to me. There's one thing that the Spirit does bring for us. It brings for us the ability to say that, I think the rule of any belief system is do to others that you would like others to do to you. I think if you work from that environment, it really becomes important. The 4th one is the physical intelligence. You need to start looking after yourself. Go for some exercise. It's not just about work. You need to find a balance. Go for a round of golf, a park run. But you need to start looking after yourself. Find that time to look after your body, because your body needs to look after your brain. And the last one is the moral intelligence. And that's a nice one, because the moral intelligence is all about the social side. It's the fact that we can have a nice barbecue this evening. We can have a nice bottle of wine. We can socialize. Because at the end of the day, this is what work is all about. It has brought us this ability to connect to people and to link up and share in our happiness, in maybe our sad times. And, just in general, find friends in work. So for me, with regards to management, I would like to show something which one of my friends bring from China when he visited there and had some courses there, which they would like to call an effort coefficient. And this is a real call to all of the managers. What they found there, or what they did, they call it the collective effort. If you have an effort of 0.99 to the power of 10, you get a result of 0.904. However, if that effort only drops by 0.9, so in other words, 0.90 to the power of 10, the result drops to 0.349%, in other 35%. There was only a drop of 0.09 that left us with a drop of at least 60% in effort. Now, how I would like to relate that back in all of these digital tools is, if the top dog, if the CEO, if the MD, if the chairman does not believe in this future that is going to be better, or that's most probably going to change, and that we need to face up to this, it's really going to be difficult for the guy that's implementing it, moving one layer down, because his effort then drops with at least 60%. The success rate drops with 60%. And if that guy doesn't believe in the future and doesn't believe that this is the right thing for that division, that effort or the success rate drops to 2%. So for all of you leaders today on this call, think about this. Think about your effort. Think about your attitude. in supporting your business. Because this is the reality, guys. We need to change. We need to move on. And I would like to congratulate Grovation on this survey that they did, putting their hand up and really trying to make a difference and bringing that reality to us as a technology industry, specifically in the agricultural environment of South Africa. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I do appreciate it, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Jaco, for those amazing insights, and what a way to set the tone for the day. Just before we get to the essence of the day, which is really the outcome of the results, let's take a 15-minute break where you can take a stroll, take a break, grab your coffee, and we'll be back. And now it comes to the exciting part of the day, where we're presenting the benchmark results. And I'd like to call to the stage the team from Grovation that was behind all of the work that we're here about today. So to the stage, I'd like to welcome Sarah, who is the CEO of Grovation. I'd like to invite Rika as well, who is the Technology Solutions Leader. I'd also like to invite Lida van Staden, who is the People and Talent Solution Leader of Grovation. And last but not least, Hannes van der Merwe, who is the ICT Services Solution Leader at Grovation. Welcome, team.
Thank you, Pumza, for the introduction. We are very proud of this initiative that was led by Rika Meiberg, the head of our Technology Advisory Division. Grovation has a strong focus on businesses in the agri and food sector and believes that technology will play a significant role in disrupting and transforming this value chain. We have decided to perform this benchmark and plan on doing so on an annual basis to help businesses in the agri sector to make more informed decisions when developing and implementing their digital transformation strategies. We see this as just another way of helping to grow more sustainable businesses in Africa that have a real and lasting impact on our continent.
At Grovation, we believe that the primary industry will be severely impacted by technology disruption due to the high demand for food security and food safety and traceability. And the only way the agri-industry is going to make up these high demands would be through technology. Therefore, the primary industry is quite a big part of this benchmark. We have invited 926 participants, but unfortunately, only 4 submitted their data in the end. Therefore, this data cannot be used as a benchmark, but we can only share some of the interesting information from this specific sector with you. One of the participants, a mega farmer, has a highly mature IT environment with a good approved IT strategy that is aligned with that of a business. They use an IT governance framework to make sure that their processes and that of a business actually work smoothly together. On the other hand, we look at risk management for the primary industry, and it's interesting that IT audits are done by all the participants on a frequent basis and also across various other disciplines. But that is where the maturity of risk management ends. 2 other participants do not have a basic risk register in which they can anticipate the risks in their business. Moving to the next topic is ERPs. In the case of the primary industry, the 4 participants have various ERPs and there are actually no alignment between that. The 1 participant has a tier 1 or an enterprise level ERP system, while the other 3 are having ERP systems in either the tier 3 or the tier 4 level of ERPs, and therefore it's more to the lower end of the ERP solution stack. One of the lenses we used on the financial data is to see on which systems the participants spent most of their money. In the case of the primary industry, they spent 28% on their ERP solutions. They spent 15.7% on their network solutions. And coincidentally, those 2 are also the same on the secondary industry in terms of sequence. The interesting things about the primary industry is that the 3rd system is a specialist system. In other words, where they need systems specifically to produce their products, like a warehouse system or a pack house system, that they spend on 11.7%. And fourthly, and interesting and quite in line with expectations, is that the HR systems are quite high on the list with 11% of their spending. Now we know that the primary industry is quite labor intensive, so it absolutely makes sense that they spend quite a lot of money on their HR systems. Another interesting thing I want to share with you is that the primary industry spend, the IT spend versus their revenue is 1%, while the IT spend versus operational expenses ends up on 9%, and this is quite high. Now, remember what I said, that this is not a benchmark, but this is an observation, and we truly hope that in the next benchmark, we will be able to refine those numbers.
Let's dive into the results. The first section of results worth paying attention to is how well IT is aligned to the business. It is clear that IT is not optimally aligned to the business strategy, and that there are much to be done to close this gap. We are glad to see that 50% of the participants are planning on closing this gap by elevating the head of IT position to a C-suite level. However, the gap is prominent by the fact that only 40% of participants who have a documented strategy claims that it is aligned with the business strategy. And of those strategies, only 60% have been approved at the board level. What is really alarming is that only 20% claim to have a mandate to influence the business strategy, and 30% stated that the head of IT would never be considered for a seat at the boardroom table. From these results, it is clear how the mindset and views of top management, especially that of the CEO, will either enable IT to future-proof the business or not.
So IT governance is quite a sensitive topic, and many people ask me what it is and why it should be used. So what is it? IT governance is a set of standard practices that is used in the IT service management discipline to deliver services to the business and align to the business. It helps with controls and quality, consistency, and improvement. Okay, but what does it mean? I'll compare it for you to building a house. Whenever you build a house, you have to comply to certain regulations before the engineer will sign off the final structure. And that would be, for example, the foundation. The foundation will depend on the width and the strength of the concrete and the weight that the structure needs to carry. It could be electricity, it could be water, it could be the roof. And the engineer will have to use those before he signs off. Now, having said that, it is interesting that 30% of the participants do not have any IT governance structure in their environments. What does it mean? So it means most probably the IT strategies are not aligned to that of a business. It means most probably they don't have metrics, they don't have processes, and maybe those are there, but it's most probably that they're not aligned to best practices. And it could result in rework, in inefficiencies, in duplication, high cost. So if you think about those, I think it's really important to consider using an IT framework to help govern your standard within your business. To add to this, IT manages business system changes by means of using project methodology. And together with the business, they will then execute a project. And normally, a project management office would set the standards, the methodologies, the processes, sequence, governance to execute a project. So back to the analogy of building a house. If you build a house, you follow a certain sequence. And for example, you would not build a wall unless you have a foundation. And you would not put up a roof until you have a wall, typically. Okay. And the same for a PMO. A PMO would set the standards and the processes and the sequence in which things need to happen on a project. Now, I want to challenge you, as the results show us that 60% of the participants do not have a PMO. 60% of participants do not have a PMO. Yet, executive teams and CEOs are willing to risk a project of $1 million or $5 million or $50 million to save $1 or $2 million, not by not setting up a PMO, but they're willing to risk that massive project by saving 2 million rand. That does not make sense. So my invitation to executive teams in this industry is to say, really consider creating a good standard in which you can make those massive investments really work to your advantage.
The debate about best of breed versus single instance versus in-house developed ERPs are becoming more prominent, and I'm pleased to see that most of the respondents are not on the single instance bandwagon. We believe that the best-of-breed architecture will grow in popularity and that the majority of agribusinesses should consider this architecture. We believe that the role of the traditional single-instance ERP will shift to become a financial hub, with most of the operational systems integrating with it to the extent that it affects the general ledger. This will allow for more flexibility in the solutions business deploys, with less impact on the finance function every time an operational system gets replaced. From the data collected, it is clear that this architecture also benefits the bank, as participants deploying best of breed claims that it consumes only 10.5% of their budget, compared to 28.4% by those with in-house developed ERPs and 40% by those with single instance ERPs. We would urge those with aging systems to seriously consider best-of-breed architecture, as it will enable faster transformation and more flexibility.
The benchmark has taught us quite a few things around how IT is applied in the industry, how their strategy is applied, how they align their strategies to the business, the cost, the structures, the skills. And it really opened quite a few options for us and all role players on how to use this data to their own advantage. But the one emotional topic from experience I know is financial spending on IT. So I just want to put two conditions on before I discuss the results. Firstly, we ask the participants to create different lenses for us on the basis of finances and their total budget. So what does it mean? I would, for example, ask them, give me a view how much capital you spend compared to operational expenses. Or I would ask them, explain to me how much money you spend on run your business, transform your business, or grow your business. So those are two of the lenses. I just want to say that concept because I will refer to the term lenses quite often. The second thing is that two of the participants did not submit all their data, therefore there is a slight impact on the average results. I first want to share with you one of the expense line categories that we created was where we provided 10 categories to the participants and we asked them to divide and allocate their total budget to these 10 categories. Interesting enough that the single biggest line of expenses is against IT resources at 24.9%, which is quite high. This is actually not surprising. If you think about how technology keeps on exponentially explode, it requires that more skills is required in the world, as well as new skills. So we're always fighting for more skills in a world with already a shortage of IT skills. So that we do not expect to change soon. The other interesting expense line is the business support cost together with business license cost actually makes up 33% of cost in this specific lens. Now, that is perfect. We would expect that there's such a high spend on business systems. That's actually why a business is existing, that we can support them in doing their business. We do expect that that cost will increase over time, especially if we think about the references which Sarah did earlier in his discussion. The second component I want to talk about is the primary system spend. Now, I'm not going to spend time on all of these lenses within this specific category, but I am going to tell you about two interesting findings. So the first finding is that a mere 2% of IT spend is actually spent on business intelligence and data analytics. This is quite a shocking finding, but I will spend more time on that one a bit later. The second one in this specific category is where we say 5.3% of the primary system spending is on IT security. Now, that sounds low, and I do think it is low. And let me give you a bit of context. I've read an article yesterday morning where the article predicted that in the year 2020, and yes, COVID has an influence on this, the cost and the spending on IT security will increase by 8.7%. So we do expect that IT security, will over time increase further. The final financial slide focuses on IT spend versus operational expenses. And in the benchmark, we picked up a 5.43% of IT spend compared to the operational expenses of the organization. Now, there are many metrics in this benchmark related to finance. And obviously, we don't have a lot of time to discuss all of it here. And hence, I invite you to go onto the Grovation website to purchase your full report with all the financial metrics of the benchmark.
One of the most important questions to ask is how IT contributes to profit and how this contribution should be measured. It was very interesting to me that some of the participants selected not to submit their financial data. However, we received enough data to at least draw a line in the sand from a per user, per year cost basis. The average user costs amount to just over 62,000 Rand per year. We believe that the ultimate performance indicator and the best way to measure IT's contribution to profit is not to measure cost per user, but rather to measure turnover per employee. The reason why we believe this is that the main reason why you should deploy technology should be to increase one's employees' productivity and output. I know most management teams argue that technology should reduce the need for people. Still, in practice, we seldom see this as the main result. We see technology simply enhancing management's ability to manage more with the same staff complement. Even back in the day when the tractor replaced the ox, did we not see farmers spending less time on the field, but rather just increasing the size of the field due to the efficiency the technology brought? We see the same happening with modern technology, especially software solutions, and therefore we believe that measuring your IT department's ability to help your employees handle more is critical and will have a very direct impact on your bottom line.
Business intelligence and data analytics. A personal favorite of mine, but some disappointing results. So what is business intelligence? It comprises of the strategies and the technologies that companies use to derive at certain insights based on data. Now, a business intelligence platform, or also some people call it data analysis, is built on a solid architecture that enables them to expand in future. So if one considers that business intelligence and data becomes a strategic asset for organizations to get insights and things they never had before, it is really shocking that on average, only 2% of IT spend is on business intelligence and on data analytics. Now, that is quite something to think about. To add to that is that only 10% of the participants have a formal, documented and approved business intelligence strategy. None of them have an architecture documented and approved, and 30% of them said they don't spend anything on business intelligence and data analytics. Now, the irony is that if you go and look at the primary system spend, BI being 2%, and all technologies like printing and telephony both have higher spends than business intelligence. And these two cannot contribute to the strategy and the competitive advantage of an organization. So we at Grovation believes that companies need to make effort to get engaged and actually build a solid business intelligence platform in order to give them the competitive edge, or at least to remain within the run through their data strategies.
Good day, my name is Lira van Staden and I'm the People and Talent Solution Leader at Grovation Group. Today I would like to share with you some of the key findings from the IT Benchmark study. And I would like to touch on 4 topics. The first being the skill shortage in the IT space and the impact that this has on your business. And secondly, I would like to touch on 3 key processes in the people and talent space. The first being organizational culture and values. Secondly, succession planning. And lastly, performance management. So let's dive in. So there's a high demand for IT skills around the world, and this is called a major skill shortage. And this talent war is not going to stop anytime soon, because the ever-changing need for new technologies and new implementations of technologies in businesses is just going to escalate this. So this makes it really critical that you manage your people very well and that you attract and retain the right talent. So what we've done is we looked at 22 people practices that we've measured, and we asked the participants to give us an indication of the importance of that process in their business, and also the effectiveness of how well that process works within their business. Only 15% of the processes are deemed to be effective and in place by more than 80% of the participants. Now that is a real concern, because it means that from a people and talent management perspective, that a lot of the businesses are reactive in managing their people. When we look at organizational culture and values as a first one, however, 100% of the participants said that this is a very important process for their business. And 90% of them actually feel that they do already have something in place that's working really well for them. Now, organizational culture is the way we do things. It is the behavioral habits of people within the team. Now, if there's bad habits and bad behaviors within your team, you can immediately think that that will have a real impact on your productivity. So this is really good news, that it seems that these participants already have something in place in that space. On to the second point, succession planning. So what succession planning refers to is that you internally building a pipeline of talent, that you are able to fill your key positions from internally rather than recruiting outside. Now, 90% of people say that this is a critical process for their business, but only 10% seem to have this in place. And you know, if you don't start growing your own timber, you're going to struggle more and more to get people from outside because of the big skills shortage that we are facing specifically in the IT space. So the last process is performance management. Now, 30% of participants indicated that they have a performance management process in place that's working for them. That's very low. If you consider that performance management is the process that you need to link your strategic objectives to accountabilities for the people in your team. And performance management is a way of keeping them accountable, and it's making you more efficient and more productive. So it's really the one thing that you need to get right within the IT team. Now, let me get a little bit practical, on how beneficial performance management can be and how it can really shape the way we do things. One of the questions we ask is around the key roles and the percentage focus within their performance contracts on different areas in the business. Now, if you look at the head of IT role, what we saw is that about 40% of the participants assigned higher than 20% rating to operations, which means that as a head of a department, their focus is mainly on operations. It's one of the highest rated areas. Now, what you measure is what you get. What we experience is that people in that type of position, in a head of IT position, need to be more focused on strategy and people management. And we need to shift away from being a hands-on manager. So my fourth and final point brings me back to the skill shortage that we have specifically in the IT space. So it is critical that we attract and retain the right talent. And in order to do that, we need to implement the right people management practices. And this 15% of current well-implemented processes within the IT benchmark that we see there, we need to get that percentage up by focusing on really diligently managing people and getting the IT manager to have a higher focus on managing people. Thank you.
As the word infrastructure suggests, it forms the foundation of IT. We all know that having a strong foundation is key to anything in life, and so it is with IT as well. IT infrastructure relates to where all our business apps and databases run on. It's the underlying architecture that processes and transfers the zeros and ones that make up the email you send, the notification you receive on IM, and the invoices sent to your client. So as you can see, we are nothing without it. In the industry, we also see a surge in cloud spending. During the start of the COVID-19, at the beginning of the year, we saw significant growth on the cloud front due to everyone taking on the likes of Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and other remote working tools to continue working from home. Q2 was also the first quarter that spending on cloud surpassed that of on-site infrastructure. With internet connectivity also becoming more and more accessible here in South Africa, we will only see this trend accelerate with time. So what we've then found in the benchmark is not surprising. 90% of participants indicated that they are moving to the cloud, with 10% already there, 50% partially there, and the other 30% planning to move in the next 3 years. Having a look at the industry, we can see that infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service adoption are also fueled on by the work from home movement that businesses were forced to adopt. Again, not surprising given the effect that the pandemic had on organizations, where they were forced to adapt to continue functioning. Given all the benefits that cloud brings to the table, we hope to see this trend continuing. Moving to new models of acquiring equipment. Traditionally, IT infrastructure was bought to own, is a big capital outlay upfront. As with the current state of South Africa and the economic challenges it faces, we will see that more businesses look to alternatives in the way they acquire infrastructure, like rent and leasing options, as they provide businesses with ways to already realize the value from day one without the need for upfront capital outlay, thus catapulting the ICT strategy forward. Some other interesting findings were that HP and Dell are the leaders for the desktop infrastructure, with Lenovo being third, as well as that all participants indicated that they have an infrastructure policy and procedures in place, but only 40% have it documented. This is unfortunately not great, given the value that it brings to have it documented, in place, and applied consistently. Based on our involvement in the industry for some years, we are not surprised that only 40% of participants have their policies and procedures documented. It is, however, imperative for the business to have it set up. Otherwise, there is no way of the business consistently upholding a high standard of infrastructure, which is key to the foundation of IT. We are hoping that more businesses see the value that this will bring. Businesses not conforming and not taking IT seriously will have a hard time adapting to the new way that IT shapes the business world. I invite everyone to explore these possibilities.
Thank you for joining us, and thanks for taking part in this conversation. We hope to see you in next year's conversation as well. Thanks to our team for shining some light on the results. And I'm going to hand over back to Pumza to take us through the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was so insightful. The detail, and the depth of the investigation that you went through to get to those results. Truly a profound report, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So if you'd like to have more detail on the insights that we discussed today, you're welcome to visit the Grovation website. It is available as from today at the www.grovation.com. Next, I'd like to introduce a very special person. She's a lady. She is in the sector. Her name is Flo Moswane. She is the CEO of Food Makers Africa. Flo, welcome on board, and really come and talk to us about big tech in agriculture. So Flo here is a very passionate person about agriculture. She is pro-subsistence farmers and the inclusion of them in the sector. And she's really is an advocate for innovation in the sector. Welcome on board, Flo.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Flo. I'm the founder and CEO of Food Makers Africa. As already mentioned, I'll be talking today about big tech and small-scale agriculture. So in our discussion today, we'll be talking a little bit about what we've defined as small-scale agriculture in our own firm. We'll also talk about why we do what we do and some of the challenges that small-scale farmers face in the sector. I'll be mentioning a few examples for what technology has done for small-scale farmers globally, and what examples we can find right here at home for how big firms can engage with small-scale farmers. I'll also be talking a little bit about Food Makers Africa and what we do in our company and how we fit into the whole ecosystem. Okay, so it remains a little bit of a debate what exactly we're referring to actually when we talk about small-scale agriculture, particularly in our country, because we have this dualistic sector where on the one hand we have really large-scale, globally competitive enterprises, where on the other hand we have really millions, in fact, of small-scale subsistence and community farmers who really battle the daily battle of sustaining their businesses and becoming commercially viable. So what we've done in our business is we've collated data from both the 2017 agricultural, or at least commercial agriculture census, as well as the 2016 community survey to define for ourselves what we believe are our group of small-scale farmers in South Africa. And what that tells us is that there's this continuum. As I said, on the one hand, the really large firms, and on the other hand, we're talking even backyard farmers, people who farm for the primary purpose of feeding themselves and their families, or at least supplementing their food security in their households. So in all the debates that we have, the one thing that we seem to all agree upon is that, in fact, farm size is a very poor proxy of determining the scale of the farming operation or the size of the farming enterprise. What we also have found is that you often find really large farms, particularly in remote areas, that have very small farming operations, whereas smaller farms, perhaps even farming enterprises that have distributed production models, they still have smaller farming units in their businesses. So, I'm not going to refer to farm size at all as a proxy to help us define what small-scale agriculture is in this instance. What we do know for sure, though, is that technology can be leveraged to impact the farming operations of those farmers across the continuum, from the really large companies to as small as you find them, really, farmers that can benefit from the impact of technology on their businesses. It is rather crucial that we keep the conversation about small-scale agriculture top of mind when we have discussions about global food security, both in the context of the need to produce more food, to feed the ever-burgeoning global population, as well as the increasing pressure to be better stewards of our environment. The reality is that the far majority of food that is produced across the world is produced on small-scale farms, but this farming community continues to be beset with challenges of low productivity, poor access to markets, no access to finance and infrastructure. And really, they continue to bear the majority of the brunt of the climate change situation and unpredictable weather patterns as a result of that. What we have seen globally is that these challenges can be overcome with technology, and the spectrum of technology that, in fact, the full spectrum of technology that is available to large-scale agricultural enterprises can be leveraged by small-scale farmers as well, in different models that are more suitable for that context. So even when this opportunity exists as it does, what we do see is that technology adoption among small-scale farmers is extremely low, in fact, critically low. So low that even the basic infrastructure, at least technology that farmers should have to be successful in their businesses, like just basic mechanization, is just either not accessible for small-scale farmers, or for small-scale farmers, for whatever reason, are choosing to not access that technology and therefore keep their businesses disadvantaged. A really exciting area of technology that small-scale farmers are yet to leverage is big data. And of course, when one thinks of big data and thinks of drones and sensors and those types of technologies that help the farmer collect information in order to make better farming decisions, we're talking here about precision farming. But actually, an example that I wanted to mention that has really innovative use of big data is a startup based in Brazil whom we are talking to for the purposes of our own market, who have used that technology framework to help farmers access the capital that they need for their businesses. They call themselves a risk intelligence as a service business because their client is in fact not necessarily the small-scale farmer, but really the large businesses like the different funders, the different insurance companies, and big trading companies that want to trade with the small-scale farmer, however, just have no visibility at farm level to help them make decisions whether or not to engage. So what the startup has managed to do is they collect 50 different data points. I mean, we're talking here different data like blockchain and satellite data, as well as environmental agronomic data that they'll put together into an algorithm that helps them quantify the risk at farm level. So really beyond the individual risk of the farmer. So in essence, almost creating a type of different or alternative bond that different financiers can buy into so that the farmer can access the capital that they need, and the lender is able to then further their business interests among that group of farmers. So that's one example globally that has been used successfully to solve one major issue that small-scale farmers have, which is access to finance. Another example that I wanted to refer to closer to home is the Nando's project in Southern Africa with small-scale farmers. So what their imperative was to strengthen their supply chain, particularly of African bird-eye chili, so that they can diversify their source of this product, which is what they need mainly for their chili sauce that they produce. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the delicious Nando's sauce. So I came across this project, in fact, in 2019 when we ran the Future Agro Challenge competition, where the winner of that competition was actually Green Fingers Mobile. And it turns out that Green Fingers Mobile was actually developed as a tool to help Nando's manage this process. So on the one side, you have this big buyer, Nando's and their source producer, who needs this African bird-eye chili for one of their main product, isn't it? It's chicken and then there's sauce. And on the other hand, they have over 3,000 farmers actually in 4 different countries that are producing this African bird-eye chili for them on pieces of land that are as small as 2 hectares. I mean, that's the scale of the farmers that they're working with. So you can imagine there are there's a lot of information flowing around. The big challenge was that the agribusinesses that Nando's was engaging with were using pen and paper to keep records of what happens at farm level. So as a result, of course, Nando's as the buyer just has no visibility of what the risk is for their business when they deal with these small-scale farmers. So remembering, of course, that in that contracting with Nando's, the agribusiness commits to, of course, providing the training and the extension services to the farmer. So what Green Fingers Mobile came to do then is give a digital tool where farmer information can be captured by those field agents that are representing the agribusiness. Once the data is captured, and we're talking about here personal data, commercial data, just production data, whatever happens to the farm that determines the outcome of the production of the black-eyed chili is all captured, such that the information is able to be analyzed and used by both the agribusiness that engages the small-scale farmer, as well as the big buyer like Nando's that engages the the agribusiness. So just that level of transparency has been able to be achieved through this technology for somebody who already had the determination that they're going to diversify their supply chain by including small-scale farmers. I just find that an example, an incredible demonstration of where the different players can fit in to just make sure that small-scale agriculture grows on the continent. At Foodmakers Africa, we've taken an innovation ecosystem approach to impacting small-scale farmers. We fully appreciate the role that technology plays when it comes to impacting small-scale farmers. So we've really positioned ourselves, or at least we see ourselves, as the enabler of the enablers. What we do is we discover and enable, and through our multiple partnerships, make sure that the startups that are in our network get the funding that they need. I just wanted to highlight, in fact, 3 points of commonality with the 2 startups that I mentioned as examples, just to demonstrate the orientation of the Foodmakers Africa Innovation Program. The first is that both solutions are driven by a commercial motive. So there's a commercial opportunity that leverages technology and is deliberately, or at least intentionally, inclusive of small-scale farmers. We believe that it's those types of models, in fact, that will give us the longevity and the sustainability we need when it comes to empowering small-scale farmers. The second point of commonality is that both startups deal with the very important issue when it comes to engagement between large business and small-scale farmers, and that's the issue of transparency. It is very difficult to engage where you just simply have no visibility, you just don't know. And this has been a huge barrier over the years for large technology businesses and large agriculture businesses, even with the intent of engaging with small-scale farmers, have just found it difficult to do so. It's a great opportunity that these startups have accessed, because by solving that one issue, they've inadvertently given the farmer the tools to engage with the rest of the agri-food ecosystem, because now they have the means to talk about what it is that is happening on their farms. Lastly, and which is fairly interesting in this instance, is that both startups have been through innovation programs globally, whether it's incubation and acceleration at different stages of their development. That just demonstrates the relevance and the role that these kinds of intermediaries can play in impacting small-scale farmers through building the businesses that are impacting them. So just to go back to our program, the one defining characteristic of the program is that it's highly collaborative. And I mean, this is a feature of many ecosystem businesses. It is important because an ecosystem is a whole group of different interests with common objectives. So far we have partnered with SW7, which brings with it over 15 years of experience incubating and accelerating startups to bring to the program the tools and resources, proven tools and resources, in fact, that help startups throughout their development journey from ideation to scale. And what that relationship has also allowed us to do is access the AWS technology platform, which really is the engine on which the startups that we're talking about build their technology. What we've mentioned as well is that you know, the typical corporate innovation model is quite prolific globally, although one must appreciate the nuances that exist when it comes to developing technology in the agri-food sector specifically. So with that view in mind, we've managed to now recently secure a partnership with an incredible organization, Earn International, and through that partnership, we'll be able to have a physical location, an actual farm, where people who are developing agri-food technology can come and network within the ecosystem, and which will play a pivotal role in being almost like a congregation place for the rest of the ecosystem to engage with the technology that impacts small-scale farmers. My name is Flo. I'm founder and CEO of Food Makers Africa, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Flo. That was so refreshing and really a good different context and perspective to hear about agriculture. You know, when we see agriculture, we always assume farmers in the khaki shorts and everything else. It is so good to see a woman and really representing us in the industry. Up next will be Asif, who is coming from Microsoft, the technology guy who will be telling us about what technologies are available for the sector. But before we go to that, let's take a break, a 15-minute break. We'll be back after that. Up next, I am pleased to introduce to you Asif Veli. Asif, we look forward to hearing about transformation in the agriculture sector.
A growing population has created the demand for food security in the world today and in South Africa. The need for food security has become overwhelming over the coming years, and by 2050, the demand really accelerates. Technology is one of those things that potentially could help create and alleviate some of the problems when it comes to food security. I think that when I look at how it impacts the world and how it impacts the lives of people, I think that we are today all part of this problem and we need to find solutions together. I'm personally very invested in the whole approach to solving food security as we go through the next couple of years. My name is Asif Veli. I'm the National Technology Officer here at Microsoft. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the Microsoft FarmBeats platform. Microsoft has developed a platform to really address some of the key challenges that are in the world today around food security. With limited arable land and water to feed the world and the population today, the only way to find alternative solutions is through the use of artificial intelligence. This is one of the ways that we believe we can assist in helping solve some of the world challenges when it comes to food security and the future of people and future of humanity. The importance of food security as we look through to the next couple of years is really depicted by these three areas around global access, sustainable production, and the need for economic growth. And each one of these areas leads to a number of challenges. With 1 in 9 people today within the poverty line, or 1 in 9 people really unable to actually feed themselves and are undernourished, presents a huge challenge for the world today as we see it. This is why Microsoft has invested 40 million rand over the next couple of years to help assist in this area of development. And we're looking for ideas and people solutions to bring forward so that we can start to apply those as we go through the next couple of years in addressing the challenges. I want to show you a quick video that really depicts what I'm going to be sharing with you over the next couple of minutes, which really encapsulates well the solutions that Microsoft is working on and how the FarmBeats solution really integrates with society as well as addresses the key challenges and problems.
More than 3/4 of the poor people in the world are farmers. They're faced with a very tough problem. They have to grow enough food to feed their family every year. When you think of digital technology, you don't think of measuring soil moisture. You don't think about helping people know when to plant or understand what's going wrong on their farm. But if we can make these sensors small enough, cheap enough, then the chance to get this down to more and more farmers, get them additional productivity, it's pretty exciting.
We're taking this data and we built machine learning and AI models to do two things. One is virtual sensor prediction. So we're predicting things like leaf wetness, evapotranspiration, and solar radiation. We use the data to customize the model for the farm, and we are getting very accurate results for each one of those.
These sensors use a new type of connectivity that's very inexpensive. It's called TV white spaces. TV white space is unused bandwidth in between the TV broadcast channels. Governments are now allowing this bandwidth to be used to transmit data. In this case, it's the data coming from the field that goes back to the computers that helps create the best advice to the farmer.
What you're seeing here is a TV white spaces router. This is like your Wi-Fi antenna at home, powering all of this through solar panels. You just power this on and you get Wi-Fi on demand in the farm. We use it to send drone imagery. Once the flight is complete, it'll start transmitting the data over the white spaces to do precision map generation.
Whoa.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm bringing it back.
Cutting the leaves. Any data you can get to farmers can make a huge difference. The weather is always highly variable. Deciding should they invest in fertilizer, when do they plant, understanding which crop would be the right one at this time. Even 20% more productivity means that they can afford school fees, save a little bit for a tough year. You know, climate change is going to make the farmer's job a lot harder, and just closing that yield gap, even a modest amount, would make a huge difference for all those farmers.
What we mean by data-driven agriculture or precision agriculture is really looking at the three areas around improving yield, reducing the risk of costs, and ensuring sustainability are three of the most top of mind areas when we talk about data-driven agriculture or precision agriculture. What we mean by data-driven agriculture or precision agriculture is really about trying to understand where to place sensors and where in the soil is the most optimal way to plant and what is the resources required to really farm. Some of these areas, if you look as an example, what is 6 inches or what's this moisture level 6 inches below the soil or the water levels, these are some of the things that precision agriculture assists and helps you drive with going forward to make farming more affordable. This is one of the areas that we look at when we look at precision agriculture. Precision agriculture as a technique was already discovered around the 80s. It's taken nearly 30 years for this technology to really take off. And one of the issues that have prohibited it was the cost of the technology needed to actually drive it. So when we talk about amplifying human ingenuity, it's really about amplifying human ingenuity through the use of technology to really assist the farmer in their capability to be able to enhance what they know about the technology that they're using today already. Transformation of farming is really through these three areas: connected farms, the ability to be able to connect sensors, to be able to understand and monitor your farming. Secondly, AI-based advisory, the use of technology to enable the capabilities around farming. And then next, around precision farming, the use again of sensors, drones and cameras to be able to really understand when you need to be doing what. And then lastly, traceability, the use of blockchain as a technology to be able to farm smarter and to be able to manage a supply chain through the next evolution of how you develop your business. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, the cost of manual data is really what is prohibiting farmers today from using technologies like precision agriculture. And some of the reasons for this year is the cost of sensors has been around $8,000 for the case of about 5 sensors. Our objective as Microsoft through the FarmBeats platform is to help reduce some of that cost down to almost from $8,000 to $80. So let's really do a deep dive now into each of these areas around costs of sensors and devices, the connectivity required in order to make a farm operational, and then obviously more important, the complexity of the technology and trying to simplify. Not everyone is a data scientist today, so how do we really bring that capability to every farmer out there? So what we need is really an end-to-end approach to this problem, or end-to-end approach to the solution, where the data collections and insights for agriculture is really made available to them in an easy and more automated way. So to solve this problem, we really need to look at all 4 areas. So we need to look at the farms having no connectivity today as the first one. And solving this challenge requires a little bit of thought and care, because this is probably the biggest inhibitor in enabling a farmer today to use the technology available today. So when we look at what we're doing as Microsoft around TV whitespace, TV whitespace gives us the ability to insert Wi-Fi signals into the whitespace channels in order to ensure that the transmission happens. So this is between the different devices on the farm, so whether it's a sensor such as soil sensor or moisture sensor, or cameras or drones, the ability to bring that information into the farmhouse is one of the big issues that farmers have today. TV whitespace really enables that capability and brings that quicker to the farmhouse and helps it to be able to process the data now. Without TV whitespace, this was a limited capability that farmers had to date. Secondly, when you look at the ability for the farmer now to get that information into the cloud to be able to process the data is the second issue. Today, operators or mobile operators or telecommunications operators are looking to use TV whitespace to do that last mile connectivity between the farmhouse and the telecommunications operator. And this is another very powerful way and one way of reducing costs of farmers to be able to give them access still to what they need as part of the farm. Secondly is the precision mapping piece. And this obviously, once they have the connectivity and they're able to do that, is really being able to now create the kind of environment that they're able to start to assess the land that they're working on. Precision agriculture is one of those ways that the development of precision maps really enables precision agriculture at scale to happen. This is one of the ways that Microsoft is helping democratize AI for farmers. So one of the ways, if you look at this chart, it gives you clear ideas of where the precision map is being able to create from looking at the moisture levels or the pH levels, which gives you a clear idea of where watering needs to take place on the farm or where further fertilization needs to happen on the farm. And this really helps use the resources that is available to the farmer more effectively and more economically. In this slide, you'll be able to see exactly how we use precision agriculture right out of the box to be able to map your farm so that you can understand more effectively where to place the sensors so that it's more optimal, so that this optimal placing of it actually relates or leads to a bigger cost saving for yourself as a farmer. And this is one of the ways that makes a very powerful proposition with the use of the platform. The platform's mapping using satellite data is able to provide you with that capability of placing it more optimally across the farm. The next slide really provides you with a good view of AI in action. So throughout these slides, you can see the use of the mapping and the optimal placement of sensors and devices. We'll also be able to provide you the good view of how, when we look at drone data, how we're able to stitch together the mapping of the farm, and then obviously the different levels from moisture levels to pH levels, and how that brings together all the different parts of the farm. This view really brings together that kind of almost takeaway for you today is that mapping the farm, looking at the areas where water is required most, where moisture levels are the highest, and also helping you identify the areas that you want to focus on over time. So it's about accuracy of data that really gives you the ability to be more precise. The next area is slow connectivity within the farm. So once a farmer has still some capability to provide connectivity on the farm, the issue is how do they get that information on a scalable basis, on an ongoing basis, to be able to process the information live and as they need it. And this is where Microsoft has developed the Azure IoT Gateway. The IoT Edge Gateway device is really there to provide the machine learning in the box. So where the device gets placed within the farmer house, the farmer is able to now use and access that information to be able to process the information in order to be able to get the results that they need. So we ship the farmer with the Azure IoT Edge device, which runs on Windows 10 and sits within the farmhouse. So how does it work? It really takes data from all the sensors, drones, and other camera information and uses that to do the computer vision and panorama generation. It then does also the machine learning and builds the heat maps for the farmer. And when we look at all of these services on the right of this chart, you're able to see some of the things that we're able to produce. The most important thing is that this device can run up to 7 days offline and still be able to provide all of the information that the farmhouse or the farmer needs within his environment. The Edge device all runs in Docker containers, so it makes for easy accessible when needed. So when you look at how does Microsoft bring that together, basically if you look at this chart, we bring together the whole ecosystem. So we bring together drone data, satellite data, weather data, all of that into the FarmBeats platform. And that really helps the aggregation to take place in the center. We then bring together the Microsoft capabilities around machine learning, as well as all of our partner capabilities that we bring into that, what we call ISVs, independent software vendors. They're able to provide information into the platform, which then provides the aggregation and the services and the processing and the data science really taking place in the platform to be able to give you the end results around the most optimal way to manage your environment, whether you're farming with animals or farming with agriculture. It's able to provide you with that. But keeping that in mind, obviously, we do not solve all of the challenges that farmers have. One of the big issues is really depicted in the next chart. The next chart is really about some of the innovations that's taking place today within agriculture. So one of the big issues with satellite information is the ability to see below the clouds. And that almost discards around 77% of all satellite images that happen today. In order to be able to provide that capability, Microsoft looked at a project called Space Eye, which is really seeing through the clouds. So we bring together satellite data, radar data, and we're able to produce multi-band spectrum, not just red, green, and blue type images, but we're able to provide the full spectrum looking beneath the clouds. In this video, you will see the Port of Seattle. So where you're not only able to see the farms around there, but you're actually able to see the ships moving or what ships are located at which point in time with this kind of technology. So the Space Eye project really helps you truly see through the clouds, which makes almost about 85% of the images now usable, as opposed to previously where you discarded almost 77% of the images. Here you'll see a farm of 2,000 acres where we're able to use a drone to be able to gather information, and here the farmer is able to analyze a lot of the information that he's getting back from it in terms of the risks to his animals, in this case, where they spend most of their time. So this helps them to obviously aggregate, use the total of the information to be able to start to move the animals around to the most optimal places to farm, as one case in point. In this video, we've put a number of hidden cameras in the barnyard, and this was to detect the anomalies of cows and in their behavior. So through this little video, you'll start to see the kind of behavior that you're looking for, and then start to be able to analyze how best to do that. Gaudi is an ISV solution, Habana Gaudi, which delivers processing power to provide AI across the fields of farms, is one of the ways that they're able to produce insights around the different plant growth stages, around what is most optimal ways of farming, as well as any abnormalities in the species that are growing on the farm. And that's one of the ways that ISVs or partners are bringing capability to the FarmBeats platform. So to summarize, really, Microsoft is committed to accelerating data-driven agriculture through precision agriculture, through differentiated technology, actionable data, and a partner ecosystem that helps us be able to reach globally customers and bring that experience to local. And that is, I think, the power of the partnership that we are offering from Microsoft. Microsoft's mission is really to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we do that here through the Azure FarmBeats platform. It's a proposition really to build a digital agricultural solution without the need to invest in deep data capabilities and deep data engineering resources for people. So the ability to really democratize AI at scale. Acquire, aggregate, and process agricultural data from various sources such as sensors, cameras, drones, and other devices that are used on the farm. So really, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention to this topic, and look forward to working with you as we go into the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Asif, and you have really lived up to your standards. Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. Up next will be a panel discussion, and we'd like to introduce a new member to the team who will be joining the panel. So we'd like to welcome Johan Giel, who is the Group Chief Operating Officer at Agri. Johan, my first question is to you. Johan, 70% of the respondents actually indicated that they are willing to collaborate in the IT space, to improve their companies. How practical is that, seeing that most of them are competitors within the very same industry? Do you think it's a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it is not always practical or easy to get the information, but the Competition Commission does make it quite difficult these days to share any type of information. But I don't think it's about share specific information per client, but it's more by sharing information about cost. And I think that this definitely will have huge benefits to the industry if we can share that cost. The cost of IT in the agri industry is really significant. If you look at our margins in the agri industry, it's really thin, and wherever we should be able to get better, more sufficient and effective, we should actually investigate that. So definitely, I think practical, we have our challenges to try and do that. And the Competition Commission is one of them, as I've said. But yes, I think there's some huge benefits by actually having these discussions and information make available. So yeah, in conclusion, I would like to say yes, we should do that. I think I got a silly question maybe to the panel, but also to the agri industry out there. I'm going to make a statement, and it might not be 100% correct, but I think the amount of money we spend in the agri sector on IT is quite a substantial number. I guess around about 1.2, 1.3 billion rand on IT systems per annum. If you look at our margins and which is really thin in the agri industry, if you look at our profits, it's not huge. If you take all the profit after tax numbers for the whole of the agri industry, I don't think it will be more than 1.5 billion rand. So whatever money we're making, we spend equally on IT. And like I said, that's an assumption. But I think the principle is not by far out. So I think what I would like to ask everyone out there, shouldn't we put all this money into one company, have a company running all the IT for the whole agri industry, manage independently, have a board looking after that company, and make sure that you get the correct service, a service what everyone would like to enjoy, and also have a proper service delivery on the IT side. And then I think, rather, because we have another challenge in the agri industry, that connectivity on the countryside is not great. And rather spend more money on that, you will actually deliver a service to your client base. And our guess, and it's real guess, of spending half the money, most of us will have better systems, better controls, happier client base, and we'll make more money. So I think let's investigate, let's discuss, and see what we can do with this challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Johan. Now back to you. What do you think is the importance of business intelligence as well as data analytics in the agriculture sector? And if it is important to you, why are so few participants actually participating or contributing in the BI and data analytics space?
I think the BI question is an interesting one, because I think you might ask a number of people and might get different answers for yes or no. In person, I think I've always struggled with the concept. I didn't get the benefit out of it by spending lots of money and spending a lot of time. But there's definitely a benefit after I've actually seen it working in the last 2, 3, 4 years. But it's costing quite a bit of money. But you need to have a dedicated team making sure it's working. You need to ensure that you're working from one database. And actually make sure that all the information in the database is balancing, and that's balancing back to your reporting. If that's not happening, that is something which you would only lose money and will have not the benefit of such a let's call it, database. There's lots of information in most of our agri systems. I mean, we keep a lot of information for different reasons, but we never use that data to the full extent. Argument, most of us are selling tractors into our farmers and producers. We're also servicing them, we're selling parts to them. But we don't look at the data. I think if you use your data correctly, you will at least have some background, and you can actually use data from one sector to the next one. So definitely there's huge benefits of using business information. It makes a lot of things easier in your processes, and you have a well-developed plan, a team who's taking care of it, and a team who's taking responsibility for it. You can make it successful, but just don't rush it. Don't think it's a 6-month program. Usually it would take much longer. But plan it properly, have a committed team, and you will get the benefits. But like I've said, it took me quite a while to get to this answer, because the first times I've tried to implement that, it wasn't successful. The last time it was.
Now over to you, Asif, as a leading digital expert. What are the technologies that you think are important and you've seen their value in other industries that can be, leveraged off in agri space as well?
Hi Pumza, thank you for the question. I think there is a number of technologies that can be spoken about today that can be applied in the agri sector as well. If we look at what has been happening in terms of digital transformation across other industries, I think so agriculture is no different to any of the others when we look at how transformation can happen within those sectors. Some of the things prohibiting though farmers today from adopting transformation within their sectors could be a number of areas. And I think I touched on some of that in my presentation, such as connectivity, cost, and complexity. Those are kind of the top three things that come to mind for me. And each of these can be addressed today through the improvements that have been taking place, both in the technology as well as in the capabilities today that exist around the farmer, whether it's telecommunications or the use or the knowledge that farmers are having today versus what was available years ago. So a number of things that can be addressed almost immediately today is things like the use of AI, as an example, to help accelerate their capability within farming, keeping in mind that most of farmers today use their knowledge from years ago in terms of how they farm, and their knowledge comes from a heritage sometimes or brought down from generation to generation. Today's technology is able to help kind of almost create farming in a box. And I think so that's the power that's available today. But when we look at transformation in its broadest thing, it's around a process. So it's about the stages that the farmer goes through in terms of what he needs to be able to manage. So it's all the way from starting from capturing the manual processes all the way through to automating. And these are steps that a farmer would need to go through. One of the most powerful things that one has available today is information. And the use of information is really how farmers can help scale and accelerate their capability that they have in terms of what they know of the farm and how do they use that. So things like business intelligence or intelligence from data itself will help them accelerate that. So I hope that kind of touches on what can happen or what kind of technologies can assist a farmer in the short to medium term to help them get going very quickly. Thank you.
Now, looking at emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain, which other technologies that you think would be of use and of value in the agri-space?
I think so. We spent a lot of time talking today about the Microsoft FarmBeats platform. I think so that what that brings together, more importantly, is not just the platform itself, but it brings together an ecosystem of players that contribute towards the success. So when we look at emerging technologies, I think that could be definitely one of them, packaged together with things like partner solutions and the use of AI or artificial intelligence to really help accelerate the capability and knowledge that the farmer will now develop as they go through, I think are one of the areas. Another thing that I would like to maybe just touch on is things like marketplaces. How are farmers really going to be able to, once they've developed this capability, really start to effectively bring their products to market in a scalable manner? Keeping in mind that what we are creating here today is really evolutionary in terms of the farmer, or real innovation taking place in terms of how the farmer will be able to scale their businesses going forward. Once they have that, they need to really plug into the full ecosystem, or within their ecosystem or supply chain, into their suppliers, into their providers of services and fertilizer, etc. How do they bring all of that together? I think so is kind of the next important thing that we need to address. And that will also help address another cost factor for farmers, which is the cost of the transaction. And how do they get their produce to market quick enough through that ecosystem? So the supply chain or the marketplace brought together with the technologies that we're proposing together brings together truly that end-to-end solution for the farmer. So I think so going into the future, I think we're going to start to see more of this come together. And what I would like to say is probably more effective or innovative farming as we go into the future. Thank you, Pumza.
Now, my question is to Rika. Rika, you have a wealth of experience in the IT industry. Your background has been in banking, and now you find yourself in the agri-sector space. When you do a comparison in the various industries, how does the agriculture sector fare in as far as the IT spend and just the development in the IT space? What are your views around that?
Pumza, this is an interesting question. The evidence of the complexity of these industry players are visible in the number of business types they are involved in, which actually totals to 30. And the average number of businesses that participants are involved in is 14 businesses, and the highest being 23 businesses. Now imagine you need to run 23 different businesses and the systems that are required to run that business. So to answer your question, the complexity of these agribusinesses are quite high. To answer your second part of the question is, how does the IT spend look? In the results, we revealed that the IT spend versus operational expenses is 5.43%. Now, I have to say that the industry is the biggest influencing factor on this specific metric, and all the industries vary. So to give you a few examples, firstly, banking and financial sector is almost on 9%. Okay, media and entertainment is on 6.3%, education on 6%, retail 2%, food processing 1.5%, and now you can see with 5.43%, for agri industry, we're sitting almost in the middle. And it would be interesting in future benchmarks to see whether that really changed and whether that number is the true reflection of how much IT spend is compared to operational expenses.
Flo, this one is for you. Now, the report tells of how important the secondary agriculture is in helping farmers transform. But it looks like they're not using a lot of technologies. What do you think they can leverage off technologies to scale and to maybe magnify what they're doing within the sector?
It's an incredible honor to be included in this prestigious panel with big business, or at least big tech and big agri. What it seems is that we share this common objective of leveraging technology to make sure that the agri-food ecosystem is thriving, is globally competitive, and more importantly, in this instance, is inclusive. So we're really keen to network, to explore opportunities for collaboration, particularly with big tech and with big agri, to see where the gaps can be filled within the ecosystem, such that there is a seamless flow of technology from the innovators to the users, who in this instance are small-scale farmers.
Now, Sarah, my next question is to you. Now, it looks like there's a whole lot of technologies that can really be leveraged off the agriculture sector. But it looks like the barrier to entry is always the price. How do you think the farmers could best leverage these technologies without the constraint of price?
Thank you for the question. I believe that is one that many are asking. I believe, like most of the things in Africa, IT is just another area where we should learn how to control it rather than to own it. The moment we switch our mindsets away from ownership, there's a multitude of possibilities. I believe that more and more of these solutions will be offered on a subscription or consumption basis, and that businesses should seriously consider these rather than the traditional outright purchasing models. I personally like these models as they help to improve our balance sheets by improving our financial gearing, making it easier to access funding for our core business activities. And the fact that companies receive up to 43% of their annual cash flow back in taxes alone makes it even more attractive. I also like the fact that these models enable businesses to switch to newer technologies faster, driving digital transformation in a very real and practical way. So to answer your question in a clear way, I believe businesses will be able to afford these new technologies by renting them rather than owning them.
Hannes, this question is for you. Now, the history of IT has been about having the big servers and, owning the actual physical equipment. What do you think the role of IT will be in the future? Looking at the different IT, solutions that are coming up, software as a service and all of the others. What do you think this will look like in the future?
That is such an interesting question. So if we look back onto how IT is traditionally seen when it comes to the business, each department business unit works and acts alone in the business like a silo. This is the case with IT as well. Ownership of the systems resides with IT, and IT plays the administrator for it, therefore taking all the slack when things don't work out. This then creates a disconnect between what the business wants and what IT thinks is best and can provide, because they are not well integrated. In the future, we will see more of the business and IT moving closer to each other to better integrate. Businesses coming up and saying, hey, we have these requirements and this is the system we are looking for. IT then having the know-how of these systems and the background technical knowledge. Together, they can better make decisions, thus playing the role of enabling and helping the business. IT will not own all these systems and processes anymore, but rather enable it. So they will be responsible, but the business still accountable. IT will help glue all the different business aspects together, being their support and helping them realize the full potential of the system.
Leader, as a people's person, my question is to you. Now, what is the single most important thing that IT has to do to get greater productivity as well as performance of the company?
The short answer, performance management. Performance management, if done correctly, can really help the IT department to implement its strategy, increase productivity and efficiencies within their team. With the recent pandemic, with remote working becoming a reality for all of us, performance management is also something that we can use to start managing outputs and results versus input and effort. So in the benchmark study, 60% of the participants indicated that performance management is a critical process for their business. Now that's a bit concerning, but I think the reason for that is that, number one, the process is really misunderstood within the market, and secondly, it's badly implemented. So I think we need to do a lot of effort to help people within this industry to understand the value that this process can bring to the table and to help them to really unlock the potential that sits within this process and what it can offer the business. Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you, but that was certainly an insightful time for me to just listen to the experts about where the industry is headed and the insights of the report, the detail that is carried within that. It surely gives the decision makers quite a lot of insight to work from. And you are welcome to visit the Grovation site where the report will be loaded and it is available for sale. It is www.grovation.com, and have an absolutely amazing day.